Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 17th episode of Shakin and Not Stirred. How you doing, my man, Adam?
I am great. How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good. Glad to be doing this episode tonight. Doesn't feel like it's been 17 episodes long, It feels like
No.
tonight's just another brand new beginning, because it technically is. But before we hop into that, watching anything cool in the last 2 weeks?
Well, last 2 weeks, obviously, I've watched the Indiana Hoosiers win the national championship.
That was great.
The Bears finally met their end, but I'm still very pleased with how this whole season transpired. So I'm not terribly upset about that. The last couple nights, I don't know if it was last night or not. I didn't watch anything last night, but recently, within the past week, I've watched Pluto. I watched The Warriors. And got my fiance to watch some of that, which she thought was just ridiculous. I'm like, it's kind of meant to be ridiculous. And I watched Masters of the Universe, which is always a classic.
I got some of my figurines from that movie, the movie version.
Oh, the movie version. I had the toys from before the movie came
I had
out.
those too. I mean,
yeah.
There was like the wizard guy who eats the ribs in the movie. I got like him and stuff like that. Yeah, like some of those that were just coming out around the movie time. But very cool movie.
And I watched The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, the original one.
Walter Matthau, right?
Yes, and the other, I watched the other night, which I haven't watched in forever, was Legends of the Fall.
I like that movie, but it's
ridiculous.
But it's also ridiculous too.
It's ridiculous, but like when I first so this guy I know, my friend introduced me to this probably in my early 20s, and the movie came out when I was in I don't know, middle school or something like that. Maybe
94, 95, 93.
Yeah, so it was late middle school, early high school. And you look at it oh, it's just a romance movie or whatever. Then you watch the movie and you're like, holy shit, with half the stuff that transpires in it. So, yeah, I watched that. But that's probably it. I haven't watched anything, I can't recall anything. I haven't been to the theater in the last couple of weeks or anything like that and seen anything new, to put it that way.
Definitely also very cool is able to see just Brad Pitt in that movie. And have you ever seen River Runs Through It?
Oh, yeah.
Now, which one do you prefer out of those two movies?
Legends of the Fall, to me, is probably a better movie. A River Runs Through It, too. I like River Runs Through It, but that's also kind of an acquired taste. I can see how people don't like that.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a slower run at times.
But Robert Redford direct that one, so it's to me it's awesome,
Well, look at these
movies. Craig Schaefer's in it.
I like in the end of Legends of the Fall when Anthony Hopkins comes outside with the gun and he looks like 90, 100 years old. That's
that was post-stroke Anthony Hopkins.
Yes,
the character post-stroke, not him.
Yes.
But yeah, River Runs Through It. Yeah, you forget about the people that were in that movie. I said Craig Schaefer, who was in the program, he was the quarterback in the program. Then you had Tom Skerritt as well in that. So you had some people. I don't know. People don't ever talk about that movie very much.
Yeah, no, you don't definitely hear about those either one of those movies actually. But they got some good stuff in them. So it's awesome, man. You're watching really, really good stuff. What is your so let's get started here on GoldenEye is where we're at tonight. We're here at the 17th James Bond film. So bring us up to date here.
So it has been 6 years since License to Kill came out. And I want to take this moment, because I should have done this last week. My dear friend, John Hillier, got me this for Christmas.
Oh, awesome.
I forgot to show this on the show a couple weeks ago. It's an actual, and then you see the back of it as well. It is an official comic book adaptation of the actual movie itself. And it's pretty on point. Like if you skim through this, a lot of dialogue, a lot of the stuff in here is very, very spot on. And it's pretty cool. The illustrations are cool, but they have
yeah, next time we go somewhere, you got to bring that. That looks pretty amazing. I want to
mean,
see.
some of the characters don't look like themselves, but a lot of them do, and like it, but like it's pretty awesome. But he got this. I forgot it's like where he got it, but he got it a long time ago. I never knew he did have it. These are actually some actual shots from the movie itself, like in here. So, but yeah, the back of it. But yeah, so he gave me and my brother each a copy of this.
Very
So I thought that was
cool.
pretty cool. I wanted to like give him a shout out for doing something that awesome. And also got my GoldenEye shirt on
Oh,
today,
yes. Yes.
which my brother got me for Christmas.
Just this Christmas?
This Christmas,
Wow. We're just a couple weeks out.
just a
What
couple
about a
weeks
month?
from.
Well, yeah, just a little less than a month.
But
Wow.
anywho, so it's been 6 years since License to Kill came out, and there's a lot of legal wranglings and things that have stopped the Bond franchise from moving along. License to Kill didn't do quite as well at the box office, not nearly as well as box office as they hoped it would. So this time off actually worked in its benefit in hindsight. So they really wanted to go big with this one, and Timothy Dalton initially wanted to come back, but after all the time off and everything, he kind of decided that he kind of didn't want to, then he did want to, and then Albert Broccoli kind of got involved. You know, he was kind of semi-retired. He said kind of impossible for him to come back after 6 years, and so he didn't come back. So they're out to get a new James Bond. And the search didn't last very long at all. They knew exactly who they wanted. It's the same guy they wanted the first time when Timothy Dalton became the James Bond. And that's Pierce Brosnan. So he was now well out of Remington Steele. And most people probably knew him at this point from Mrs. Doubtfire. That's the first time I saw him in anything. I never knew what Remington Steele was when I was young and never watched it. But I remember him from Mrs. Doubtfire. And I was like, the guy from Mrs. Doubtfire. And he was kind of an antagonist in that movie. So I was like, that guy's going to be James Bond. Okay. But everyone, was pretty excited about this and had a pretty, big, like, media blitz on it for, like, to introduce it. Say, this is going to be a big Bond film and everything. I was excited about it because it's been a while now. And I think the franchise needed that time off a bit to kind of get people excited again for it. So this came out in 1995, like I said, 6 years after License to Kill, and they gave this movie almost double the budget of the last one. This budget for this one was a little over $60 million, and it grossed domestically grossed over 100 million, and which was the first Bond movie to ever gross over 100 million domestically, and worldwide it was over 352 million. So it was huge. It was the most successful Bond movie since Moonraker. So it was the first MGM United Artists Dolby Digital release too. So in a theater, they wanted to make a more of a theatrical experience when it comes to sound on the theaters themselves. At this time, it was 1995. So like they kind of wanted to jump onto the, like how Moonraker jumped onto the space race. This movie kind of wanted to jump, not the space race so much, but the Star Wars movies, the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, things like that. They wanted to jump into that whole, jump on that craze. This movie kind of played off the technology craze that was going on in 1995. So you had things like, you started having like PlayStation and N64 not far off from this. I don't think they were out in 95, but they were soon to be released. You had, the SNES, you had Sega Genesis now, you had the 16-bit systems. You started having more people own personal computers. So they had, Windows. If you didn't have Windows 95, you had Windows 3.1, which always support Windows 3.1. I've always been a big Windows 3.1 guy. But so like a lot of the stuff in this movie was based off of the current technology at the time. Now it's aged out, obviously, because the technology has been well advanced since then, but you really don't feel like it takes away from the film when you watch it now. So it doesn't really make a difference, honestly, to me. But anyway, so this movie also was filmed kind of during the beginning of the CGI boom as well. But to their credit, I think, And yes, I love Emma Stoss as well. Um, to its credit, it didn't use a lot of CGI. There's a few things you use CGI for, but they had a guy on here who I don't think gets enough credit. Do a lot of his name is Derek Meddings, and he did the miniatures in this film.
Oh, okay.
And it's credited for having like the largest amount of model and miniature work ever utilized, basically, in a James Bond movie. Because James Bond movies have always, used these types of effects, but this guy really went all out with it, which was kind of weird considering actually the technology was available at the time to do different things. But he did the work he did on this film was probably the most impressive I've seen in almost any film, because the whole location in Severnaya you see with the satellite dish and Russia and all that stuff where we originally meet Natalia and Boris and all them,
Mhm.
those are all miniatures.
Oh, you can't
And
even tell, really.
you can't, as I'm saying, you can't tell the backgrounds and everything, the mountains and all that, those are all
Cool.
miniatures. And even towards the end of the movie, in the train sequence, the train itself, when it's going along the tracks, it's a miniature.
Hmm.
So, but that's the thing, you can't even tell that's miniature, and it looks more realistic than CGI does, and definitely looks more realistic than CGI would have at the time. So, it was kind of a good decision to go that route. But other than that, so this movie was directed by Martin Campbell, who later would come back to direct Casino Royale. So this was kind of the first Bond movie that focused a lot on really focusing on the cinematography, the lighting, um, the kind of basically the shots you're getting throughout the whole movie, the angles and all that. So you see a lot of like more. I don't want to say it this way, but it was a little bit more artistic than the other ones. The other ones kind of were filmed by the old guard. You had the John Glenn's of the world and the Guy Hamiltons, doing the movies, and the Lewis Gilberts and all that. And they kind of just wanted to shoot an action film, basically shoot action movies.
This is trying to take the art to a new form here for James Bond.
Yes, for James, exactly. So that's kind of the point I'm laboring toward. So, and I think it really, since it was a perfect time to do so, with it being kind of, 6 years and you have basically a whole new cast. Now, the only person that is left from any of the older James Bonds is Desmond Llewellyn, who's Q. You have a new Miss Moneypenny now, played by Samantha Bond. And I don't know if that's a coincidence or what it is, but obviously you have Pierce Brosnan playing, James Bond himself, and Sean Bean, who we all know Sean Bean now from, Game of Thrones. He was before that. Before this movie was even filmed. He was in Patriot Games playing the
He's
antagonist.
pretty good in that new one with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet, and I do need
Not
to
bad.
see that.
Okay.
But yeah, Sean Bean's pretty awesome, and he plays a great villain in this film. Um, other than him, the other villain who you think is kind of the main villain for a while is played by Godfrey John, who plays Colonel Oromov. And the only other thing I've really seen him in, I know he's been in a handful of things, but I remember seeing him in Proof of Life
Mm.
with Russell Crowe and Meg Ryan.
The proof of life. Yes.
He was one of the hostages that David Morse met in that camp that he's being held at. You also had a new M in this film. The first time you had a female M, played by Judi Dench, who would hold that role all the way through Skyfall.
Mm.
So it was kind of a big deal at that time, and they wanted to show they can put a woman in that role and be effective with it. Judi Dench was kind of perfect for that. And they really addressed that at the beginning of the film too, when she meets Bond in there. I'm not too crazy about the whole dialogue with it because they're trying to really push the point across, but she views him as a misogynist, sexist dinosaur, she calls him, and all this, and they kind of don't like each other initially, but then at the end of the conversation, she's like, hey, come back alive. So it's not like she's that cold-hearted or anything like that. You had Isabella Scorupco. I always have trouble saying her name. And she plays Natalia Simonova. And she is a programmer who works in that Severnaya, whatever it is out there, and works with Boris. And Boris is played by Alan Cumming. who's
Great
kind of
role.
he,
Ridiculous role.
he's recognizable for sure, but his acting in this one is not. He's nothing like he is now. He's much just goofier in this one, and I think he's just meant to be like that. The big nerd programmer who's very
Yeah.
annoying.
Yes.
And he does it very well. And then you have Famke Janssen, who plays Xenia Onatop, which is one of my favorite Bond girl names ever. And her way of dispatching people is wrapping her legs around them while she's banging them and squeezing the air and the life out of them till they're dead.
Good way
Pretty
to go.
awesome.
Great way to go.
Pretty awesome. Although, if you notice, like in Living Daylights, when I don't know if Q said it or I think it was like that. They were going through different villains or something of different people, and they mentioned some Russian girl. I think it was a Russian girl they mentioned who would do that to her adversaries when he was in there with Moneypenny and stuff. It was kind of a very brief scene, but I don't know if this was like alluding to that or something. But those are your two main Bond girls in this movie. And I love the Bond girls in this movie. Famke is an awesome villain, looks incredible, and Isabella Scorupco I think looks stunning as well. And she is kind of an underrated Bond girl because she's very she helps Bond along with this one. Like he needs her to kind of complete his mission in this whole deal. I mean, it's imperative that she is there for some of the things that has to happen. So she's not just eye candy in this. She kind of rolls along, and she plays a little bit of a damsel in distress at some points, but yeah, it's very much a movie where they're going to show that women can be involved in these type of Bond films in very important roles, lead roles, roles that are that carry the plot along. Like I said, Judi Dench and Isabella Scorupco both are great in this film, and so is Famke. Like so, Famke is just, dude, she's crazy in this movie, and she just really lives it up on the camera. And it was the first time I've ever seen her in any movie, and obviously she's been in a bunch of things since then. But this is kind of the first time I think most of the world kind of laid eyes on her and said, "Okay, this one's probably gonna make it," and she did, obviously. There's some supporting roles with Robbie Coltrane playing Valentin Zukovsky, who's a former KGB agent, and he's a character I wish was in pretty much. He's in two of the Brosnan films. I kind of wish he was a recurring character in all of them. That would have been kind of nice because I do like his character a lot. Joe Don Baker is in this again, but not as Brad Whitaker, the villain, because Brad Whitaker's dead. But he plays CIA agent Jack Wade, who's kind of, I guess, the new Felix Leiter of the story, because if they're still going along with the canon, Felix Leiter no longer has a leg, so I don't think he's going to be doing a whole lot of field work or anything. So Wade's kind of, and then at the beginning he kind of gives off this very cold vibe, and then all of a sudden he warms up and he's kind of goofy and he calls James Bond Jim and Jimbo and things like that. So dresses in dresses like Hawaiian shirts and shit like that. But yeah, that kind of rounds out most of the cast. Michael Kitchen plays Bill Tanner, who's the chief of staff for M, and he's a recurring character throughout the Brosnan films too. But this movie is really pushed along with well, the first I should say the opening sequence really
Gets it going.
reels you in. And the first thing you see is a character, and it's an obvious stuntman. You can tell it's not Pierce Brosnan really doing it, but I kind of, whatever.
Yeah.
But he jumps off that dam, which is supposedly in the Soviet Union. It's really in Switzerland, but he jumps off that dam and he goes into the chemical weapons facility. And the first time you see him, is hanging upside down in a bathroom stall, oddly enough. But then they kind of do a reveal of him when he opens this little door and he's looking through. You kind of see Pierce Brosnan for the first time. And this guy, he's a pretty quintessential Bond, I think. He's kind of a hybrid of what Connery, Moore, and Dalton all were. And not to discount Lazenby, but like guys that did multiple movies. He's kind
Right,
of
right.
like he's kind of all of them wrapped into one. Now, obviously, I've made it well known I'm a Roger Moore guy, but Brosnan was pretty good. A pretty good James Bond. Even if I didn't like his films as much as some other people did, I don't think he was the problem in the movies. He was, he was pretty good in all of them. There's some things like that he did that kind of some of his mannerisms really irritated me, but his pain face he makes and this weird sometimes he make a weird face when he was like hurting or something like that kind of like bothered me. It just looks so dumb. Like the way his mouth was, it just looks stupid.
Bothered me.
But yeah, at one point, so Famke Janssen like really steals the scenes in this film, though the parts that she's in when
I'm
she's
still
killing
thinking about
people.
being
She's
wrapped. I'm still thinking about being wrapped around. Just kidding.
that like, dude, when she shoots people, she's like getting off on it while she's shooting people.
I like her a lot. I've liked her in lots
And
of things.
honestly, they were thinking initially at one point Courtney Cox was considered for that
Ah,
role, but she turned it down because she was
she's
starting.
dancing in
She
the
was doing
dark.
she no, it does well after that, but
I know.
um,
I'm kidding. You know,
and also
she's so busy. She's dancing
and
for the
also
clown.
Masters of the Universe veteran Courtney Cox might
Yeah,
have
that is true.
but
That is
no, she was
fine.
filming Friends, so she
Oh,
didn't do it. Stupid ass show Friends. Um, so but GoldenEye was is a nickname of James Bond, the James Bond creator Ian Fleming, his beachfront house in Jamaica. That's where they got the
oh,
name from. And
that's
in this
cool.
movie, the GoldenEye is kind of like a satellite that can shoot out an EMP that will render all electronics, basically like a nuclear weapon does.
Mhm.
And they're weaponizing it to, there's Alan Cumming right there, kind of being bored. That's kind of, if you look at him right there, that is basically his character. That is,
It made me laugh when I
you
seen
can
this.
you can hear him in that picture right there. Um, but yeah, anyway, so this was the first Bond film that was an original James Bond movie. Had nothing to do, no reference or anything to any Ian Fleming novel or short story. So it was brand new by itself
Fresh
and
material, fresh written material.
fresh. Yes, it's at 6 years past the last one. Let's do everything brand new and fresh. Um, but the original and even the opening title, I've always been big on the Bond opening title sequences by Maurice Binder, and this is the first one done by Daniel Kleinman, and they kept it in the same spirit, and they always have kind of in the same spirit as what Maurice Binder did. It was a little bit different. But Maurice Binder, he died since making License to Kill, so he wasn't going to come back and do this. That's what I'm saying. Like this whole movie was just new people trying new things, but kind of keeping the spirit of it all and keeping the story kind of similar to kind of they brought the Soviet Union back into this. By this time, the Soviet Union has been dissolved, for 4 years. The Berlin Wall came down '89 and get dissolved probably '91 I think overall, and then so it's been like 4 years since it dissolved. So the beginning sequence kind of goes back to that, and so you get some older Bond feel to it, but it's like I said with the technology craze, you get a new kind of twist on the story as well. So I think they did a really good job. I've always liked this movie. This is by far my favorite um, Pierce Brosnan Bond movie, and it's probably a top 4 James Bond movie for me. I don't know why I didn't say top 5 because I think it's better. I don't know, but like it's definitely one of my favorites. It spawned a legendary video game, and
Yeah,
we've all played that. I don't know anybody who has not played GoldenEye Nintendo 64.
yeah. I mean that goes way back, and it still has continued to be played. Like if someone can get their hands on a 64 and GoldenEye, first
Yeah,
person here.
and I had it on my RetroPie, little console. Like that's one of the games. Like it never gets old. The co-op is great in that. Um, the secret boards and stuff are cool. You get old characters like Jaws in there and everything like that too. So like, and they've made one since then. They've made Tomorrow Never Dies, which was kind of is a first person shooter, was a little bit different. And then The World Is Not Enough. But like nothing ever like kind of like caught the fire that GoldenEye did. Like no one talks about those other ones. I don't know
No, I
anybody.
didn't even know they existed, to be frank,
Yeah,
because I don't play that
you
many
could
video
look them
games.
up.
But GoldenEye,
You could look them
even if
up
you
on
didn't play it, you
YouTube
knew about it.
and like, watch like playthroughs of World Is Not Enough or Tomorrow Never Dies or whatever. But like I said, it just doesn't. It didn't have what GoldenEye did, and that's because GoldenEye was the first one that came out, and it was so good. Because I mean, I don't know how many first person shooters were even out at that time. You
Oh,
had
man.
Doom, and you had like the Wolfenstein was like the first one, the big one probably, and then you had like Doom and Resident Evil. Was Resident Evil even? I don't even know if that
You're
was out
asking.
yet.
This is out of my league. All I knew was is that you could go somewhere like when I was at Ball State and walk into a house, and this is the only video game I ever saw people playing and like religiously playing it. And it's crazy because it wasn't like they sat and watched the movie before it. It was just the video game was very huge because of the movie.
And this is the only movie that I know of, at least, where you could go through it and think, oh, this is that board of the video game. Oh, he's in this room now. I remember that part of the video game. So
Pretty
if you
cool.
watch this movie and not, or say you played the video game and then watch this movie years later or just
You're
after that,
going Duke Nukem.
Duke Nukem, okay. At least I'm not too privy to that because
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
so there's probably some that were out at that time. But yeah, so like you could watch this movie after playing the video game and be like, oh, this is where this board is. This is from this board. This is where the game got this from. And you kind of basically associate a scene with one of the boards on the game, which is pretty cool. You can't really say that about other movies, really.
No.
Um, at least on this scale, I'm sure like other games model themselves after like you can play Jaws on Nintendo, and so basically you it's kind of based off of Jaws 4, but like there's still not like scenes from Jaws 4 that are in the game, like
No.
this is.
That was a game that was another blast from the past right there. Friday
Yeah.
the 13th game was another one.
Yeah, but see, Friday the 13th also like
But you're just in a cabin. It's nothing like specific. It's
it's not
like
specific. Yeah, you're at Camp Crystal Lake, and nothing specific from the
to the
films
movie.
itself.
No,
It's just
no.
like this one was like, oh yeah, they're in. You drop into the bathroom stall like in this movie, like you did in the beginning. You jump off the dam. You do all this stuff. But anyway, past that, the opening sequence is just awesome, and his partner 006 Alec Trevelyan, who he thinks is his is his partner, but he thinks is executed, and he's ends up being the main antagonist later on in kind of a surprise reveal, which is kind of cool because Bond movies didn't really use surprise reveals like that up until now. But and then the stunt of him, it's pretty ridiculous stunt. It's so outlandish, but it is cool as hell when he jumps. He's on that motorcycle and jumps off the edge of that cliff, and then just follows the plane crashing and gets into the plane and pulls the plane up, and then you hear like the first notes of do 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 going into GoldenEye. Like
Sure.
that was like I could see people in the theaters being like like yeah let's fucking go. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But that takes me into the next thing which is the music in the film.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the theme song. I'm
Oh
not.
really?
I like the first notes of it until it starts getting into the verses and chorus and all that stuff. If you listen to the lyrics, it just sounds weird. Like there's one thing that like one line that says, you never know how I watched you in the shadows as a child. I was like, what the hell does that mean? And what does that have to do with anything? It's like that doesn't
Good
even like
question.
I don't
Good
care if it
question.
doesn't have anything to do with the movie. It's just like, why would you say something like that? Like that's really weird.
That's a good
But
question.
but the theme was written by Bono and the Edge. So and the Rolling Stones were offered a chance to sing the title song, but they turned it down.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
And that was right around their Voodoo Lounge tour like time too. And they were popping again. So like and then there was Ace of Base.
Oh yes. This is where we bring ourselves to.
You got to hear this one.
Which we're just gonna play a little clip here, and you can just hear if this was this song that was picked for this. Would you have would you have jumped more on board?
Generation is marked into the bar. We're in the 90s. Nothing left to say.
You can't play much of it because of copyright reasons. But if you heard it just for a couple seconds there, and if you didn't hear it, go to YouTube and check it out, man. It's ridiculous.
It's called Juvenile, isn't it? I think it's called Juvenile.
I didn't
Ace
actually.
of Base.
Yes.
Look it up on YouTube and listen to it, and know, even though I don't
the Juvenile.
The Juvenile. So I don't like this song that much. It's sung by the song is sung by Tina Turner, and I don't like the theme song that much, but it is definitely better than the Ace of Base version. I'll take
now,
that
would you like it better if Bono sung it?
Probably not. Not it would have to sound different. The sounds the whole. The sound sucks. I just don't like it. It's not the fact that Ace of Base is even singing it. It's the fact that it just doesn't sound good. But Eric Serra scored this film, and like the Bond films, like I said, like they stopped using the title sequence in the films themselves and the score. So he scored this movie, and I thought the score was great in this movie itself. So I thought he did a very good job. He also scored The Professional and The Fifth Element too. So he also did that. There was an end credit song which was kind of really didn't fit in the movie at all. Right when it ended, it's called The Experience of Love, and it was written by Eric Serra. And I don't know, but I think I don't know what really the point of it was, but like that's what ended the movie, and I'm like, all right, well, whatever. But the score itself is the strength of this film, I think, too. When it comes, like, you have the opening theme, you have the closing song, but the score itself is really what I think is really good about this.
Yeah, I think it would have been better if Tina would have made the song "What's GoldenEye Have to Do with It" instead of "Love," and then just made the song that. I would have bought into that probably.
Just do a whole pun, yeah, the whole time.
What's GoldenEye have to do
with it? But no, she keeps saying GoldenEye. It's like,
I know it's not. That's where I was going to bring my point is if for me, maybe if it had a better theme song, it might actually be my top one or two. But the theme song brings it down a couple levels. Not that it should, but
and that's the thing. I don't hold like Tomorrow Never Dies. Next one we're going to do. I like that theme a lot better than this one. But this movie is vastly superior to Tomorrow Never Dies. So it kind of sucks that this movie couldn't have had a better, title sequence to it. But
they should have did the Madonna one for this one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, they'll get to that later. And as much as I love Madonna, she just absolutely destroyed that one. I don't know if that was really her fault or not. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, this film, like the locations are pretty cool in this one too. Like I said, it's supposed to be an old Soviet Union, but really a lot of it's filmed like Switzerland, England. This is the first time they used the actual MI6 building for the exterior shot of him going into MI6. And his you start, like, Samantha Bond's got a little more involvement as Moneypenny. So when you're at MI6, you get a little more of her now. You get a little more of the scenes with M. M is not just like, the way he was portrayed before by Bernard Lee and Robert Brown. I should say she is more involved in the stories now going forward. You see her in the field for various reasons a lot more, and that goes through, and it's even more so in the Daniel Craig movies even. So her role only grew basically as this went on. She plays a huge part in The World Is Not Enough. So it was, like I said, it's a new age kind of a new age Bond. It's not a reboot like the Craig series, but it's a continuation. But it's still like I said, it keeps the spirit of what Bond is, but it's definitely different than the older ones. Like, you can see the old guard's kind of gone now. This is kind of the direction they're going to go. Yeah, there's a game right there. But other than that, I really want to point out how cool the villains are in this one. Oromov is, I think, a terrific villain who you think is the main villain until Alec Trevelyan's revealed to be behind the scenes of all this, who goes under the name of Giannis. That's kind of his alias. And that's how Robbie Coltrane knows who it is. That's how Robbie Coltrane kind of gets Bond set up at the meeting with them, and really it's all a trap. And then that's also how he meets Natalia. The only thing, him and the chemistry between him and Natalia, I like it. They kind of punch into the love portion of it a little too quickly. They kind of just all of a sudden, oh, by the way, after she escapes the train, all of a sudden she was lusting after him all of a sudden. It was like, where was that before? Or, maybe we should have, I don't know. It did develop the romance very well. But once it happened, like in Cuba, when they're in Cuba, it kind of, they played it well. So the whole sequence when he's in the beach, like you see right here, that's
Yep.
Derek Meddings used, create the miniatures. So those trees, those mountains, all that stuff is a miniature set he created.
Oh, cool.
It is cool. So when you see the planes and you see and the helicopter fly in through that.
Is this one of the last? I mean, who does this anymore? Is this even done still in movies?
I'm sure it's done, but I mean, you just don't see it or you don't hear about it much. But you could probably look that up and see,
Yeah, so a good research one to look into.
They'll probably give you some blockbusters that utilize that, but it was just a good decision, I think, and I'm glad they did it that way because I think CGI would have looked not so good at that point.
And people who were older Bond fans, bad as it would have if they maybe used some of the ones that everyone could have used.
And then people would have kind of been like, they kind of would have pined for the older Bond films that didn't have something like this. They think, this direction it's going to go. I don't want to see this kind of crap in a movie, So I'm kind of glad they did what they did with it and limited the CGI a lot. And, but it's like I said, they made good decisions in this film. It was a great movie for being 6 years after the last one. They kind of needed one. They needed a hit, and they really pushed it. The ad campaigns were ridiculous for this. The commercials. I remember when I was younger, and it was a big deal. And it's the first one ever saw it in like a theater. I was too young to see License to Kill or anything like that.
Yeah.
So this was like,
you're like 13 or 14 when this came out.
This came out
probably.
If it I'm not sure if it came out in the summer or the winter time because my birthday's in August. So if it came out in the summer, I might have been 13. So
you're born anyway. Actually, this came in 95. So you're.
Yeah, I was 14 in 95. I turned 14 in 95.
Yeah.
So
it was pretty cool.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is it where do you rate this in your not just all the Bond movies, but in the Brosnan film?
Well, it's definitely probably the best of all the Brosnan films. I mean, you can't put up much of a fight with that. But I also think it's because it's kind of like a band's debut album. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's just so much of that 5-year period that they poured into this greatness that people love. But as we dig into the next ones, maybe that's why I'm kind of excited to rewatch them because that's what I've been doing before we've done the show to see maybe I've missed something. Maybe there's one that could be close to equal. That's what I'm kind of excited to look into.
Yeah, there's one that's I think decent in the Brosnan films, and there's one I don't like, and there's one I just absolutely fucking hate. So
it came out in November.
Okay, so my brother said it came out in November, so I was 14 by the time it came out. So, but either way, that's not a huge deal. But it was the first one I remember coming out. Because License to Kill came out, I was 8 years old. I don't remember the movie coming out. I remember seeing it on TV when my dad was watching it. That's what I remember.
I was going to actually bring that same quote up too. Because not only for, my dad liked James Bond, but let's just say put this in action, just an action movie. Movie kicks ass. It's just an action movie. You don't have to follow the Bond series. You could just say, let's watch this movie called GoldenEye. And you could be like, this is a awesome action movie for the time, for when it came out. And I think that's kind of what I remember hearing from my father. And it's just, and also again, like you said, James Bond being a kind of like togetherness of all three Bonds. It's really kind of cool. And I think he also has a great look for Bond too, which is cool also because I didn't think maybe Daniel Craig would be the part, but he also fits the part also. I mean, I think they all fit the part.
Well, Daniel Craig, so when this came out, like I said, I mentioned it earlier. When it came out, I was like the dude from Mrs. Doubtfire. And I didn't like Mrs. Doubtfire, so I was already like, all right, this guy's gonna be.
I was gonna earlier see when he came out. My dad was like Remington Steele, but it wasn't a big show or anything. But like when you look at like when there's a James Bond, say just like a picturesque, in my mind, I always see somebody pretty close to Pierce Brosnan. That's what James Bond would look like in the novels when you're reading them. But that could just be my interpretation. So when he looks on screen, but Mrs. Doubtfire, you're absolutely right. Why would you ever think the guy from Mrs. Doubtfire who ate the scallop that was spicy would be?
Yeah. And then I'll one up you on that when they were talking about, after Brosnan was done, they were saying, okay, who's in the new James Bond? The name Daniel Craig. I knew Daniel Craig from Road to Perdition.
Yeah.
And that was just, he was a skinny, creepy, blonde-haired guy.
I think that was the problem with Craig, too, is blonde-haired guy. But honestly, even, I think I remember my dad saying the same thing, but I think me and him went and seen the first one, Casino Royale, and it's hard to ignore the awesomeness of Daniel Craig as James Bond. So you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like once you saw it, you were like, wow, this is good.
No, yeah. Like, so it was, I was sold on it when I saw it. When I first heard about it, I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, seriously?
Brian says Pierce is great in the Thursday Murder Club. I think that is a new show that is on. If you haven't seen it yet, you should. Pierce
he was good. Also good. He was good in Black Bag.
Great that he was in. Great. Got a new show on Showtime too that he was really good in with Helen Mirren, which is
Helen Mirren,
she's great.
But I do agree with you. Like, he has like the most like Bond-like look, because like I said, people like said Roger Moore was kind of too old when he took over, and as he aged a bit, you said, okay, he wasn't quite as believable.
I wish,
Sean Connery obviously aged throughout too, and by Diamonds Are Forever, he looked like holy shit, like this guy looks like he's 60. But Pierce Brosnan, like, was kind of, he's right in that wheelhouse of like not too young, but he's not too old. He's like almost like a guy in his 40s who's experienced, but like he's not like he's not built like Daniel Craig is.
Well, no.
But
I wish Pierce was actually in, not that I love Timothy Dalton in the movies, but I would like to see Pierce in the last two movies. Like, he would have been in, like, could you imagine if he started with, Living Daylights, then License to Kill, and GoldenEye was his third movie?
But that's it, because the thing is, like, if they still had a 6-year gap in between, he may not.
Well, he would have been. He would have been. You're right too.
There may have been someone else.
And he would have looked younger though in those other ones, so maybe that could have also worked to the favor.
It could have, yeah. And he aged kind of gracefully. I mean, by the time he did die another day, he still didn't he was definitely, you could definitely tell he was older, but he didn't look old or anything like that. It wasn't like Roger Moore to View to a Kill,
No.
It was nothing like that.
No. Well, what kind of trivia you got for us here?
So, this is the first movie. Now, I said this movie I like because of the lack of CGI, but this is the first time. So, CGI was actually used to create the famous the gun barrel opening, making this the first Bond movie to ever use CGI. Period. And it was used. The first thing they used it for was the gun barrel sequence. So that was kind of cool that they used it for something like that, because I can understand that it's. You got one guy on the screen, walking across and doing one little shot like that. It's hard to ruin that with CGI. None of the weird little fact here is none of the principal cast of this film that are portraying Russians are actually Russians.
Oh, interesting.
So Isabella Skorupko, my girl Isabella Skorupko, Natalia, she's actually Polish, Swedish. Famke Janssen is Dutch. And Gottfried John, who plays Oromov, is German.
Interesting.
So, and General, I forgot, Defense Minister Mishkin, who kind of takes over for Pushkin But he has kind of a smaller role in this film. He is the guy who plays him is French, really in real life. And then Robbie Coltrane, who plays Valentin Zukovsky, and Alan Cumming, who's Boris, they're both Scottish. So,
Very
and
interesting.
then you also have Pierce Brosnan, who's not really English. He was born in Ireland too. So he's British. But he was born in Ireland, but whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, Isabella Scorupco, I guess, was the closest thing to a Russian, considering she was Polish. I mean, I don't know. It's a Slavic country. But anyway, it's the second appearance of Joe, as we mentioned, of Joe Don Baker after playing the villain Brad Whitaker in Living Daylights. And so he's in this movie. He's also in the next movie as well. The precedent was kind of set by Walter Gotell, who played the villain Morzani in From Russia with Love, and then he played General Gogo, from The Spy Who Loved Me on through all the Moore films, and then The Living Daylights. He was briefly in that. And then you had Charles Gray, who was Henderson, who was a CIA contact for Bond in You Only Live Twice. The next film, he was Blofeld. Or not the next film, he was 2 films later. He was Blofeld in Diamonds Are Forever. I'm already skipping over George Lazenby. I don't mean to. So he is so Joe Don Baker is one of 3 guys who reprises a role as different characters. Now you also have Maud Adams, though, who came back years later for a film playing a different character altogether as well, from Man with the Golden Gun to Octopussy. So yeah, those are the only 4 characters ever done that in a Bond film. It is the 3rd James Bond movie to use the word gold in it. You had Goldfinger, The Man with the Golden Gun, and now GoldenEye. Why they're so obsessed with gold, I have no idea. But
I like gold.
Of all the things you can name, and there have been 25, 26 Bond movies or whatever, but like they've used gold in 3 of them. This movie, Pierce Brosnan, James Bond, he kills 47 people in this movie. That's the highest kill total for James Bond in any single James Bond movie.
Awesome.
To date.
Very awesome.
47. Kills
That's
47 motherfuckers. That's a lot.
That is.
So
that's huge. That is huge.
Most of us will not kill 47 people in our lives.
No.
So most of us won't kill one.
No.
But he killed 47 in the matter of a couple hours. So of film, that is, obviously. Okay. So yeah. But and then he has a very cold-blooded kill at the end. When he drops Trevelyan in that dish, which is another kind of ridiculous scene. Because you drop from that height and hit that dish like that, don't tell me you're living through that.
That's true.
And that dish actually exists. It's in Puerto Rico. And it had a problem. It's something collapsed on it years ago. But like that dish actually does exist in Puerto Rico. You can look it up like on Google or whatever. So as like some part of an observatory or something. So it's pretty cool they used that in the film too. But yeah, overall this movie was great. The Bond girls were just smoking. And the villains were good. The story was good. The supporting cast with, like I said, Robbie Coltrane.
I'm already excited to talk about the next one because we'll probably find more humor in the next one. This one was like a straight serious one.
Yeah, it was pretty serious. I mean, he had some smooth, like he was more of a smooth character in this movie, and it worked for him. Though, like I said, it's something that like he wasn't serious as like Timothy Dalton. He kind of took a little more of the Roger Moore, Connery humor back into it, and it worked. I think it worked really well, and I love this movie. And I'm glad we got to this one. But we are inching closer to another one I'm dreading.
Well, everyone out there, I hope you've enjoyed our discussion on GoldenEye. Please a couple things here really quick before we take off. Stay tuned here on the channel. If you are watching here in about 10 minutes, we're going to be having a draft of the great wrestling theme songs. And I will concur your Demolition song that you sent in is a banger. So tune into that. It's a good one. I've picked out some good ones. Tune in to see that. Tomorrow night, we are definitely back at the show. We are definitely going to be talking The Thing. John Carpenter classic, one of my and Yumper's favorites. So tune into that. Also tune into the Hookup on Music and all the new episodes that are there. But everyone else, in 2 weeks, we will be back talking more James Bond. And we've been having some laughs here. So I'm excited to see what we're going to laugh about next time. So everybody out there, thank you, Adam. Have a good rest of your week. And everyone else out there, you too. And we will talk soon.
All right.
Good night.